Welcome to the Strategic Life Podcast, episode 117, Parenting with Purpose, with your host, Coach Mario.
Along with Frank.
And
special guest today.
Special guest, Rosana Aziz. I don't know why I said it like that.
It's very exotic.
You like that?
You went exotic there.
So she is the CEO, a certified parenting coach with Mama Smarts.
Mama Smarts Parenting, yep.
There you go. Did I say it wrong?
No, you said it right.
She's going to put me on timeout. She's a really good parent. That's what's all the rage. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Excellent. So I think a lot of us have a little bit of experience with parents. Some of them may be good, some of them may be bad, but either way, we're going to figure out what's good, right? So I like the niche, first of all, parenting. Most people are going after, let's change lives. I want to be Tony Robbins. I want to help people, release their demons, things of that nature. So just like a teacher would want to help mold the next generation, I think not that teachers aren't important, you guys are, but I think the parenting is a huge deal. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions, which I think you might have more information on. But what are we doing wrong? Tell me where I've messed up. If my kids are listening, don't.
Well, I'm going to use this to go back to my parents and be like, this is what you did wrong with me.
Rosanna says that this is all wrong. So,
first of all,
here we go.
Everybody does the best that they can with what they have, right? All of our parents, everybody makes mistakes. Even after becoming a certified parenting coach, like I make mistakes. It's part of life. It's how it goes. Mm-hmm. It's then what you do with it. How do you address it with your kids? That's where it is. So it's not like anybody is doing anything drastically wrong. Some people are.
But I beg to differ.
But everybody in general does the best that they can with what they have.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just learning to have some more self-awareness, a little bit more perspective on parenting, a little bit more knowledge on where your kids are developmentally. That take your relationship, your connection with your kids to a much more healthy level and set them up for success in life.
Okay. So, especially with parenting, there's so many things that can be done wrong, right? And there's, especially whether you're a parent or not, there's so many things that you don't even think of until you become a parent, which are interesting. Just over the years, I mean, none of this is rehearsed, y'all, right off the top, but putting the baby sleeping, on their back, or put them on their chest, or, put classical music on the headphones around. There's so many things that you're told to do. I don't know if there's statistics or information to back up any one of those things. But as far as parenting approaching, I mean, I was, jokingly saying, what are we doing wrong? What is, based off of your experience and education in this niche here, what is the best way to approach parenting? I don't know if it does have a name, or does it have multiple names? I know sometimes, like religion, some people branch off and make their own.
Right. So the kind of umbrella term that I think most people are familiar with hearing is gentle parenting.
Okay.
And which is also conscious parenting, mindful parenting, respectful parenting, peaceful parenting. There's a lot of different names for it. To me, they're all really the same. It's parenting your child with respect, with the understanding that they're little, but they're not inferior, and they just don't have as much experience as you, so you have to guide them, right? There's a big difference between discipline and punishment, which gets very confusing in our past generations. So that's the blanket term,
so
gentle parenting.
So
and
does it
lots of misconceptions about what
sounds
it is.
like gentle parenting, the chancleta or the belt aren't involved.
No.
Those are the gentle parenting skills I got.
Right.
So what are the misconceptions about gentle parenting?
Misconceptions about gentle parenting is that it's permissive, is that you have to be perfect. And that's just absolutely not true. Gentle parenting is not about letting your kids run all over the place and do whatever they want. It's very much the opposite. You are the authoritative in the relationship. You are there to guide them. You just don't have to be a jerk about it, And the misconception that we're perfect, we're absolutely not perfect. Gentle parents mess up all the time. And it's about having the humility and understanding that you can get down on their level and apologize, you know, and set up a relationship of mutual trust and respect with your kids. You know, you can't demand respect from somebody without modeling it to them, right? The child's not going to learn how to be respectful, how to be compassionate if you don't show them, right?
So that's a little bit of the don't do
Right.
as I say, not as I do, right?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna play this in a loop at the Alexa at my parents' house,
Oh yeah,
specifically for my dad.
you got to translate it though.
Nah, I'm just gonna play it. It's
For maximum effectiveness.
when he's sleeping, everything she's saying is going.
Subliminal
I'm gonna
messages.
just put it very low next to while he's sleeping. Hopefully, get
Frank has clearly already been affected by the outcome of his non-gentle parenting. Okay, so because I'm up on my reels and my stories and my shorts game.
Okay.
I see a lot of videos of people, especially when it comes to parenting, and I feel like it's a brutal topic because everyone's got their. I think there's nothing more.
Well, it's taboo, right? You
Right.
you don't
Very
tell
strong
somebody
opinions.
how to parent a kid. Like that's
Right.
always been the
Right.
growing thing.
Or even
Right.
like I said, the reels are just joking about it. But even in the streets, even in public, like
Streets?
in the streets, y'all. When you're like, when someone is reprimanding their child, or they'll grab them, or a smack on the butt, you'll see someone just come out of pocket and be like, you shouldn't put your hand. And it's just like, oh, here we go. Like
Yeah.
that's.
No, again, everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have.
With how they were raised.
You don't have to point it out to people. And what I love about parent coaching and this particular method that we use is that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your child, right? We're just teaching better methods, healthier methods of emotional regulation, teaching emotional intelligence, what is that? That's learning how to identify what you're feeling accurately, be able to name it, and then what do you need behind that, right? So, there is a lot of judgment, like you say, out there. It is a brutal environment because everybody's got something to say about how you're raising your kids,
Or
and
you're doing
that's
it wrong.
not what we do, right? We empower you to figure out what works for you and your family. I'm a punctual person. I don't care if you are. Like, if that's not something that's of value to you, then cool. It's whatever works for your family. What values do you want to teach your kids? Screw everybody else.
So Rosanna, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. Why did you choose this?
he's hungry.
What was so attractive about this, this category and helping parents specifically? Like, when was the first time you said, man, okay, I need to do this?
Okay, so I have a 3-year-old son.
After birth.
Yeah, it's always after birth. And he was, I don't know, not 2 yet. It was maybe a year and a half old, and the behaviors start to get more challenging, right? 0 to 12 months is a piece of cake. 12 and on is, I don't know, a vegan cake.
Shots fired at vegan kid.
Sorry. But I was always trying to question, or I was questioning, what do I do? What's the right response when a child is having a tantrum and screaming and crying? Like, are you supposed to ignore them? Are you reinforcing bad behavior? If you pick them up, if you comfort them, I didn't know what to do. So I started, following different things on social media and getting tips here and there. And some stuff worked and some didn't. And I came across this and my certification course, and it was life-changing because it's not about the child. You having a reaction and a trigger to your child's behavior is about you. It's about some stuff that you're holding on to from your childhood, your past, that you need to overcome in order to be able to be present with them and help them through whatever emotion they're having. So that's what attracted me to this. That's what initially made me join. And the unexpected benefit is that, it's completely life-changing for the parent. You let go of things that you didn't realize we're sabotaging your life. You learn so much about yourself. You learn the tools that you need in order to teach your kids what you want to teach them. And how are you going to teach them if you don't know, you know?
Interesting. So what's the typical approach? I'm just going to guess. Is it a parent like who would approach you, maybe ask or show interest in your program? It would be probably what? How do I take control of these kids? And then you're like, yeah, it's not about them. It's more about you you know, I'm sure there's skills that you can, you know, put in place. Is that pretty much the approach? It's more about the parenting doing the work first and then maybe some strategies on how to adjust behaviors and whatnot?
Definitely. And it's not like you have like a script of strategies because every situation is going to be different. Every household dynamic is different. You might have only one parent household. You might have both of them there. I mean, everything is different. Every child is different. Every parent is different. Everybody's carrying their own baggage. So the beauty about coaching is that it's very personal. You know, you take it with meeting the parent where they are and helping them with the specific, you know, whatever challenges they're dealing with. So somebody who's looking for maybe improved connection with their child, maybe at the preteen teenage. Or somebody who's struggling with like the really challenging, like very young child behaviors, right? Before they have a fully developed prefrontal cortex, which is a big thing that we talk about, right? What's age appropriate behavior, right? You don't expect a 3-year-old to sit down quietly at dinner for an hour and a half while you're at a restaurant. Like
I don't expect coach to do it.
I mean, funny you bring that up. I mean, no, this is gold here, right? Because we had this conversation the other day. Someone said, I am bringing the iPad to dinner because if I do not, like they will not sit there. And otherwise we can't do anything. Even for a date night, I can't find a sitter. Like, you know, people will say, oh my God, look at their kids on the tablet. Look at them on the devices and just mindlessly sitting there, you know, while they eat dinner in public. How could they do that? And it's like, well, this is the only way I can get them to sit for 45 minutes. Otherwise it's just going to be screaming and, you know, so it's... Again, something else other people are going to have an opinion on, like, oh, no iPads, or no, are you showing kids electronics at a certain age? No, Cocomelon changes scenes too fast, and you can't watch that because it teaches the kids to not have an attention span, you know, bigger than a doorknob spring or whatever.
I like Cocomelon.
It's kind of repetitive.
We have to let go of the judgment.
I was going to say there was a whole lot in that last 30 seconds. So pick and choose whatever you want to respond to.
We got to let go of the judgment. You know, screens are here. They're a part of our lives. Again, what are the values in your family? What do you do? Do you want to completely not use screens? That's totally fine. You know, that's great. So you're going to have to maybe be more patient sometimes when you go out in public. You're going to have to bring other things to entertain them. And at the core of everything, of course, is learning how your nervous system is responding to whatever's going on so that you can calm down and be present for your kids and help them through whatever, you know, difficult emotional situation they're going through. And the screen thing, I mean, if everybody is getting their needs met in the family and you need a screen every now and then for a short amount of time or however long you need it for, like, can we all stop judging about parenting? Like, that's not what it's about. It's not, right?
I also think kind of just, you know, the modeling, right? How are you going to tell your kids to not be on a screen when you as a parent are on your screen all the time? Even if it's work, right? Let's say you're not eating crap on your phone. Let's say you're not, you know, just going through social media. Let's say you are doing work and responding to work emails and doing all that stuff. That's what they see. That's what they're seeing from mommy and daddy. So, like, you know, how do you expect them not to want to be on it too?
Well, you can't, and there's certain things that you can't protect your kids from, right? Their friends will have screens, right? Their friends will have the Cocomelon. Their friends will have certain toys. They're going to see it at daycares, or they're going to see it, you know, even in the neighborhood. They're going to see it at a restaurant.
Right.
And they're going to want it. They're going to at least want to play with it or examine it or have it at some point. So it's, I guess, to Rosana's point, it's better to teach them how to use it and when to use it than it is to neglect them of it.
Boundaries, yeah. You do have the choice. Again, it goes back to what's the family values. You do have the choice to eliminate it completely from their lives I don't know how that's going to go for you because, I mean, if you're living in an urban city, unless you're on a farm or something somewhere, like, they're going to be
Having
around.
vegan cake, we get it.
So,
with your abusive parents.
but that's where boundaries come in, right? So you can have it with healthy boundaries.
You can have your cake and eat it too. That's what
You
I heard.
can. And explain to them and show them. And like Mario was saying, model it to them, you know, get off your phone while you're looking down at your phone. Like, that's not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same, you know, that's the same behavior that people will say, like, you know, pay attention even to people in relationships.
Right.
Get off your phone, get off your social media and pay attention to your partner because, you know, they're looking at the other stuff because you're not paying attention and whatnot too. But again, the screen thing.
That's a different podcast. And you and I can have that discussion afterwards.
I don't know what that means. Yeah, so I mean, there's some of those things. So what are the biggest struggles you're seeing?
Ooh, that was my question. Biggest mistake parents are making. Like, and that you would classify as a mistake. And don't give me the
besides
value.
not enrolling in Mama's parenting program.
Aside from that, of course. Or listening to the Strategic Life podcast.
That's your second mistake.
The biggest mistake, I think, is invalidating their feelings.
Ooh.
Having an expectation that your child is supposed to behave a certain way, and when they show strong emotions to something, a strong reaction to something, we have this urge to fix it, to get them to stop crying, stop screaming, you know, you're embarrassing me kind of thing. And I that's the biggest mistake. The benefit of learning emotional regulation and emotional intelligence for yourself so that you can teach that to your child, I mean, it's huge. The depth of connection and communication that you can have in your relationship with your child and be able to accept what they're expressing to you, teach them better ways of saying things, you know, teach them how to be respectful by showing them a respectful reaction to something. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Stop invalidating your kids' feelings. Just stop. If they're crying, don't expect them to stifle it down. Teach, you know, be there for them.
That didn't hurt.
moment.
Get up.
Yeah. You know what happens though when we do that? It didn't hurt. Oh, you're not scared or whatever.
You're fine. You're fine. Get up.
You're a tiny little kid. You start to lose trust in what you are feeling.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
there's an intuition there. There's a divine voice that we all have that potentially you're going to stop listening to because mom or dad, this, you know, in your eyes, amazing being, perfect being
Your
that you
hero.
depend on, they're your heroes, is telling you that didn't hurt, but wait a minute, but I feel hurt.
I'm
so
bleeding.
is that not right? You know, you start to lose trust in yourself.
Wow.
And then what does that look like in adulthood? You don't have confidence. That's where confidence comes from, right? It's self-trust. It's knowing that regardless of anyone else's opinions, I feel or I am XYZ. I'm capable of doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're constantly invalidating what they feel, you're unknowingly causing them to disconnect.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Especially as they get older, if that's really ingrained in them, I believe personally that they'll start to dissociate from their emotions, from their feelings.
Oh, yeah.
And I've mentioned it in other podcasts of that we live in a world of chronic dissociation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To the point, you mentioned it. You phrased it in a way. You know, people, what emotion is that closely tied to whatever you're going through?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of awkward in doing coaching with adults to go, okay, well, how does this, you know, how do you feel about that? And then you just get all these words, and you kind of have to finally just go, okay. And if there was an emotion you had to tie that to, which one would it be? Because for goodness sakes, can you say, this makes me unhappy, this makes me sad? Mm-hmm. Well, that's a tricky situation. Okay, well, when you think about the trickiness, what emotion could you tie that to? It makes me depressed. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so for
It's
kids,
amazing
it starts
how,
there.
right. And it's amazing the lack of understanding and vocabulary that we have as adults sometimes to describe how we feel. Like you don't feel good. You don't know how to properly describe it. You don't know how to figure out what you need to get through it. You just keep ruminating on like, I'm angry because so-and-so did this to me. And if so-and-so hadn't done that to me, then I wouldn't be angry. And you go in this cycle without being able to give yourself the healing you need to move through the situation. Communicate with that whoever upset you in a healthy way. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's really, even for me, I started this course and, they kept saying like, you have to feel safe. You have to feel safe. And I was so dissociated that I'm like, I don't understand. The house isn't on fire. Like, there's not a bear chasing me. Like, what does it mean to feel safe?
We
and
have
like,
cameras and alarm, and we live in a gated community. There's all safety here. Even our windows have screens. Like, bugs can't get in. What's going on?
So, just to give you some perspective on how dissociated I was even, like, what does it truly mean to feel safe? It means to have a sense of peace on the inside, to know that you can be who you are and share what you're going through without the judgment. And that's what you want for your kids. You don't want them to live in this fear of not being able to share things with you, because when they get to be teenagers, you want them running to you, not from you, right, when they're going through something difficult. And that's the gold in this, right? Is you providing a healthy environment with your kids so that they trust you enough and they feel trusted by you to know that they're going to be supported no matter what they're going through.
Rosanna, this program, is it just, because you touched on something, is it just for younger kids? Is it for infants?
Kids
is it
of
for
any age?
Any age, teenagers,
Any age.
adolescents?
38-year-olds,
39.
39-year-olds, whatever.
I appreciate the 38.
You're as young as you feel.
Because it's a parent-centric program, which means the work is focused on you. There's nothing wrong with your child. There's nothing wrong with you either. It's just that you probably were never taught the tools on how to deal with your own emotions, how to set boundaries, which is a huge thing, right?
Huge.
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 So
she also said ruminating.
yes,
Ruminating
back
for
a
3
couple
episodes.
Dictionary.com here. We got a philosopher in here.
So kids of any age, because the recipe's the same. The recipe's going to start with you. And it's just knowing how to communicate at those different ages, right? A 3-year-old, you're going to use certain words and, body language and stuff. A teenager, a little bit different, but any age child that you feel might, you're needing connection with, or you're wanting to support them more. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. You could, obviously there's different issues depending on the age group you're dealing with, right? Mm-hmm. If you have toddlers or, middle schoolers or high schoolers or, there's plenty of grown adults that have problems with their parents still. And I'm sure obviously it stems from, decisions that were made in their youth, in their upbringing. And I think one of the biggest problems is obviously what we said about modeling is specifically later on. You, whether you like it or not, especially when you, let's put it this way, when you focus on something, that's what you're basically going to get, whether if you stay with it, even when you want it to be the opposite. A lot of times people in personal life and in business, they don't want to be what they came from so bad that they become that. Mm-hmm. I will never be like my mom, but you don't realize a lot of the things you do, which you observed, you've internalized it yourself, and then you do that.
Right.
And it's not until someone else calls it to your attention, which is always a lovely thing, right?
A child.
Or a child, or even a sibling. Like, oh my God, that was such a mom thing you just did right now. I'm like, don't you dare! How dare you say that? And it's just like it's an insane thing.
Yeah.
That you literally become the person you don't want to be, or adapt those behaviors which you said you'd never do. When I remember being little, I'm never going to hit my kids. I'm never going to do this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what else can we do right? As far as within the scope of the gentle parenting, what are things that can be done? And I think you mentioned so far not invalidating their feelings.
Yes, that's huge.
What are other things that we can do right? Let's language it better, right? We said, what are people doing wrong? What can people do right?
Let's talk about, this is a not, but labeling, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're negatively or positively labeling your child, if you kind of surrender and open up to just allowing them to be who they are without expectations placed on them, that's huge too. Because what happens when you positively label a kid? The smart one, the good one, the obedient one, the whatever. They tend to subconsciously live up to those expectations. And a child who has always been labeled the easy one or whatever, I just did a post on this the other day. They're not going to feel comfortable enough, most likely, to really express what's going on for them. So you put them into these little boxes and they have to live up to these little expectations instead of growing and reaching far, right? Like, you have an expectation that my child's going to be a doctor, whatever. Maybe he could have been much more than that, greater, stronger, reached further, done more, So I think it's important not to label, practice, just honestly, just watching your kids, just watch them without saying anything,
That's intriguing. I mean, because normally you think of labels like, negative things or
right, which we all
why
understand.
can't you pay attention? Why can't you be like your brother? Why can't, and it can be so much
No,
more
but we could see like the added pressure of the star athlete, right? Or
Right,
hey,
like-
or even the limitation, like he's going to be a doctor, and like you said,
Right.
nothing wrong with being a doctor. Apparently, she's got some doctor issues. You heard it here first, y'all. What's wrong with Doc? No, just kidding. But yeah, you can limit. Maybe they wanted to be more. Maybe they wanted to be the president or something else. God, we'll take anybody right now in that position. No politics, y'all. But yeah, I guess most people, at least I don't. I'm speaking for myself here, but I never would have thought that. I wouldn't have made that association that I'm putting a limitation.
You are,
by
yeah.
even what is a respected and financially well.
Yeah.
So is there a way
Career.
to properly compliment
Of course.
a child
And it doesn't mean that you can't
versus
tell them.
establishing labels? Well, because now I'm thinking, now I'm not going to walk up to kids. I'm like, I don't know what you're going to be. Go on, have fun.
You're
Right?
everything.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are all that is child.
And the bigger part that I guess I didn't mention this a couple of seconds ago. You want to set them up for a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, right? If you have a kid that's always been told, oh, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart. Most likely that child's not going to be comfortable taking risks because they don't want to fall short of this label that they've been carrying around, right? That's happened to me. Like, I was that kid. I was that kid who was, labeled always the good kid. And what happens? You become scared to take a step in any direction sometimes, to challenge yourself, to go for different things because you don't want to fail. You have this fear of letting somebody down, letting yourself down. So, and
I got your back right here. Look what you did, Mom and Dad. Look what you did.
and it doesn't mean that you can't compliment them. Of course you can compliment them. But if most of the time you have an awareness and you can try to comment on the process, like, I'm really proud of how dedicated you've been to this. I'm really proud of how brave you were today when you such and such happened. If you focus less on the result and more on the process and what's going on for them, like, in that process, that's much healthier and helps them look internally rather than constantly looking over their shoulder for external validation, right? That's teaching them how to build self-confidence instead of having it always come from somebody else.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Cool. So what else? What is the let's see. So we talked about what other, okay, so hold on. We went backwards, right? So another thing that might be done incorrectly, but what are some more positive attributes or ways we can parent effectively or parent with purpose? Episode 117, which you're now listening to. What are some other tips, techniques? I mean, I don't want you to give away, thing, but
No.
what else do we got? What else? What's the one other thing maybe we could throw at
How do
them?
you recognize you're ready for this program?
If you are,
Screwing up with your kids.
I
Well,
think
no,
if
because
you're feeling,
we have this a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
we go over that. It's okay. So here are the problems, but a lot of us don't even know we're happening these things. So if you can give advice for the parents listening to this, because I doubt there's a 5-year-old that's like, Mom, you need to listen to this.
You got to listen to Strategic Life and Rosanna. You just sign up because you're really doing bad.
So for the parents out there, if you could tell them, hey, if you're doing this, and this program's for you. Like, what would be a catch?
if you're feeling drained from being with your kids, and I don't mean because we all feel drained from being with our kids sometimes, but I mean, if you're feeling lost, if you feel like every day is a struggle, every day is a battle. I say one thing, they do something else. I end up losing my temper or yelling, or I just, screw it, let them do what they want. Like, you are oscillating between a punitive, parenting strategy and a permissive one, and you don't know where to find the balance, then yes, this is for you. Because
translation, if you've ever created a life, then this is for you, because at least at one point or another, you're going to feel drained.
If you're constantly feeling that way, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
There isn't, yeah.
Okay, so it's for everybody. It's for everyone that wants to do better by their child and for themselves. Because there's people that come into our coaching practice and they will come in and they'll want to get help because their life is in shambles. And there'll be some peak performers that are already rocking it by their standards. They're not unhappy. They're not depressed. There's no mommy and daddy issues until you fish them out that they didn't know, that are unconscious, that have ran strategies in the background that are causing them to make decisions that they made up until that day. But ultimately, they're rocking it at life. But they're still there because they want to do better. And we all do, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're listening. So it's for everybody.
What is the difference for you personally between, and especially after going through this program, between, because you've mentioned it twice and I love it. What's the difference between punishment and discipline?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Here's a
Good
big
question.
thing.
Good question.
To discipline is to teach, right? I mean, where does the word come from? Disciple, right? You're teaching. You don't need, and this is where people go nuts. Like, what do you mean I'm not going to punish my kids? Like, they did something wrong. Like, what does a punishment accomplish? You're making them feel shamed. You're taking something away, whatever. I mean, what does that do? Did you teach them a better way? Did you correct the behavior? That's what you're there for. You are the teacher, right? You're the one in charge of disciplining. Say you start a new job and you make a mistake one day, and instead of your boss talking to you about it and saying, okay, this is how we do things, it's not like this, whatever, they just take away your lunch hour or something. I mean, like, that doesn't accomplish anything. It
go to the
really
corner.
doesn't.
That's happened to me.
So that's what it is. To discipline is to teach. You don't need to inflict punishment. You don't need to make them suffer in order for them to learn something. In fact, they're probably going to learn a lot less if you do that. If you cut off the communication and you just punish, I mean, what is that? That doesn't do anything.
And I think that's the first thing people do. They cut things out. I mean, I'm guilty of that as well. We take, no electronics.
Right.
The screen is gone. The iPad's gone. Forget about it. Don't even look at it. Don't even breathe. So, those things get taken away. I think that one makes the most sense. That's a great response, right? You need to educate them or teach them a proper way instead of just taking things away. But obviously, for those who don't know, like, what about spanking, which traditionally been like, you don't do that, you do this, that's wrong, that's,
I mean,
and again, I'm thinking about parenting again from what I've observed. Stories and social media, or even reels and jokes and memes, is like, what's wrong with kids today is that no one's gotten a good spanking in a while, and that's why
Let me say this: punitive parenting, like spanking, punishments, all this, they work in order to get your kids to comply, in order to get them to be submissive and obedient. It works, but at what cost, right? You want your child to be healthy emotionally. You want them to have the skills to learn how to deal with their anger, with their sadness, with their frustrations. And punitive parenting just doesn't offer that. Again, it doesn't teach anything, right? So yes, if you want to have a child who lives in fear of you, yeah, the spanking works, but what's that costing you? It's costing you your relationship with them, a deeper connection with them. When they get older, are they gonna come to you when they have a problem? Because that's what everybody wants, right? When you have like a teenager who gets into some mishap, as we all do, even as adults, we make mistakes. Like, you want them to come to you, or you want them to hide? You want to teach them how to lie better. You want to teach them how to get further and further away. So there are other ways, effective ways. Gentle parenting, conscious parenting, mindful parenting. It's not going to work the same way that does. It's not going to be the first time you teach them and try to explain to them how to do something differently, they're just going to get it. No, they're kids. Their brains are still developing, which, by the way, if anybody is unfamiliar yet, your prefrontal cortex, right, which is responsible for regulating emotions and critical thinking and decision making, it doesn't even start developing until approximately the age of 7. Mm-hmm. So you cannot expect that a 0 to 7-year-old ish, right, is going to have the same kind of maturity to make decisions in a responsible way that you would. So you don't punish them. They're literally doing the best that they can with what they know. Right? So, and we're not done, by the way, developing our prefrontal cortex until we're around 20.
7 is when I quit. That's when I took the rest of the time off.
25 to 28 years old, depending who you ask. So
depends on my clients. Maniacs.
Excellent. All right, cool. So where can we, I want to make sure, any other hot topics in the parenting world that you want to bring up? Because I'm not the expert here, just saying.
Those were the biggest things, like validate their feelings, be there for them. If you don't know how to do that, like get a parenting coach, me, so I can teach you. And hold up a mirror, like reflect, like how are you handling your emotions, right? Be the example to them. The whole do as I say, not as I do, that just doesn't, it literally doesn't work that way. They're going to do as you do. So set the example. Yeah.
Stop screwing up your kids. You're hearing this for a reason, and it was to hear her. Yeah. So, Frank, anything else? You got anything in that little prefrontal cortex that stopped developing at age 7?
No, I don't have kids, so.
That you know
but from now on, I'm not gonna.
You did do that stint.
I would walk around. He's gonna cure cancer. I'm not gonna label anything from now on. It's just how did I do? I don't know. You tell me how you did.
I would tell you you're gonna go to the moon, but I don't know if that'll limit you, and you want to go to Saturn.
No, it puts things in perspective because really you don't. A lot of this you can really you could take in and kind of go through the checklist. Yeah, sure. You might not be parenting, right? So someone like me, like we're listening to this, it's not necessarily, okay, I'm going to do this and then this is how I'm going to apply it to, my kids specifically. I don't have any, but, I think about like my nieces and nephews. I think about, other people's kids. I think about how, things can affect me. So you're right. A lot of this is intro, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of this is how do I fix myself so that I portray a better parent. Yeah. So my child's point of view about me is a better parent. And it just really puts things in perspective on things we've done wrong. Like I love the discipline versus punishment. I love that, right? Like those are things that we don't think about, and we do them with multiple relationships, right? I'm assuming some of this is also spousal.
Oh, of course.
Right? Where
you learn to better communicate with anyone.
So this can help with relationships as well. Like if you think about things like that, because we also do that with people around us, our friends, how I as a son will do it with my parents, or how I'll do it with my sister, or how I'll do it, So it's crazy to think that, how we are, our patterns really do just go all over the place.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they do.
Excellent. So how can people find you?
On Instagram, Mama Smarts Parenting.
Mama Smarts. What's the spelling?
MAMASMARTS.
There you go.
Parenting.
And
the website.
The website.
MamaSmartsParenting.com.
Excellent. So check her out. Rosana Aziz. I said it like that again. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird day. Excellent. So that's how you parent a little bit with purpose, but for more information, you got to hit her up. You got to check her out. Definitely. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you.
And
I love this. I love having Rosana on here.
Have kids so you can sign up too, and then give me the information because the way my checking account is set up.
Checking in a
We'll see you guys next time.